Overdrive is one of the most fun mechanics in video games, period, and it is what I would say is the central and arguably most important combat feature in Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, at least for ground-based combat. And understanding how to use it will drastically increase both combat success and how much fun the game is. In the original game, many players during a first playthrough wouldn't understand it at all thanks to the game not explaining it super well to you, and as such they'd miss out on one of the features that makes X a legitimately great game with a ton of build diversity and one of the most fun combat systems ever. This has been somewhat remedied in Definitive Edition, but it can still be pretty confusing if you are new to the game. In this video, I want to explain everything about Overdrive to you so you can set up your own Overdrive builds to take advantage of this mechanic. I'll also show some fun, really beginner-friendly Overdrive builds you can use very early in the game depending on the class route that you take. If you enjoy guide content like this on Xenoblade X and want to see more, well, make sure you subscribe to the channel because it really does help me out so much, and all support is greatly appreciated. And once again, I am extremely close to 100,000 subscribers, and a good portion of my viewers are not subscribed, so if you do subscribe, I'll love you forever. With that said, let's get into it. It's pretty easy to see why most people might think Overdrive isn't all that useful when first playing. Upon beating Chapter 5, you'll get access to this mechanic, and chances are you don't have a lot of good build options just yet. In order to activate Overdrive in combat, you need 3000 TP, which is basically the default limit you have, and what most players are likely to still have after Chapter 5. Then you need to press the center button on the art palette. Upon activation, you are given 25 seconds, up from 15 in the original game, by default to use. I think the increased time will help a lot in using it more effectively, especially for newer players. It can be confusing and has this random counter at the bottom, and for many players it may expire with nothing notable happening, and they'll just mark it off as useless. But let me tell you this, that could not be further from the truth, and understanding this mechanic can make you absurdly powerful. At its most basic level, activating Overdrive drastically reduces all of your art cooldowns as seen by the cooldown bonus above the art palette on the right side. It also allows you to access more powerful tertiary cooldowns for your arts, which independently multiplies all of your damaging arts by 400% and gives you 20 extra seconds on auras and debuffs along with an effect up to 2 tiers higher. For certain buff arts, it can also allow immediate reuse, which is actually more useful than you might think in Overdrive specifically. You will also notice it reduces enemy resistance to debuffs and has a damage multiplication factor also above the art palette, which can further increase your art damage. Having the arts recharge very quickly and do more damage certainly seems strong in a vacuum, but for only 25 seconds without other benefits, that doesn't seem like it will always be the most useful. Well, let me tell you why that is wrong. When you activate Overdrive, the number in the center of the screen will start counting up. The higher the number gets, the stronger all three of the effects above the art palette will also get. This means even shorter cooldowns, even more damage multiplication, and even less enemy resistance to debuffs. So then, you might be asking, how do you build this counter up effectively, and how is this super useful if it only lasts 25 seconds? Well, there are ways to extend the duration of Overdrive depending on your own art combinations, and you can also reactivate Overdrive for another 3000 TP to extend Overdrive further. But more about that later. Let's talk about how to build the counter. So, in most normal scenarios, the counter will start at 1. It used to start at 0, but since you now have a guaranteed hit upon activating Overdrive, it pretty much always starts at 1. If you have the skill Phantom Counter or Overdrive Count Up as traits on your weapon or armor, you actually start Overdrive with some count already, but otherwise it's going to start at 0. By using either a yellow, orange, or purple art, you can increase the Overdrive counter by the amount of hits of that art. Yellow arts are ranged arts, orange arts are melee arts, and purple arts are debuffs. The one exception to this is if you are using a yellow art into an orange art or an orange art into a yellow art. You will not get any count. The damage bonus will also be negated, so you never want to use a yellow to orange or orange to yellow at all. This means using traditional melee and ranged arts back to back is always going to be bad. If you want to swap between your melee and ranged damaging arts, make sure to use one of the other 3 kinds of arts in between them to actually get the count increase and damage bonus. For area of effect damaging arts, you will also get a count increase by 1 for each individual hit done to each individual enemy, which can be very powerful in multi-enemy fights. Count will max out at 100 and give you a 500% additive bonus to damage, 5 times reduced cooldowns, and 100% debuff resistance reduction against enemies. As such, building count is very important to get the maximum amount of bonuses. So is there a way to build up count more efficiently? Well, yes, there is. If you use a green art, which is a buff art, before a yellow, orange, or purple art, the amount of count gained by using these damaging arts is doubled. So each hit will increase the count by 2 instead of just 1. When building count, Using green arts before damaging arts is very beneficial to increasing your count faster if you're trying to max out the counter. So again, how does any of this help if Overdrive only naturally lasts 25 seconds? Well, fortunately, you can extend your duration while in the middle of Overdrive, and continuously extending your duration is typically called Infinite Overdrive. This is something that everyone who plays this game should absolutely learn how to do. You will have a lot more fun if you do. So the timer for Overdrive is underneath the counter, and once the gauge depletes, Overdrive is going to be over. However, if you were to use an aura, which is a blue art, you can extend the duration of Overdrive by 1/10 of a second, multiplied by whatever the current count is. This means if the count is 50, you can extend Overdrive by 5 seconds by using an aura. If the count is max at 100, you can extend Overdrive by 10 seconds. Additionally, using buffs, which are green arts, will also extend duration by 1/20th of a second, multiplied by whatever the count is. So at a count of 50, this is 2.5 seconds, and at a count of 100, this is 5 seconds. But that's not all. If a buff affects the entire party, it will count that buff 4 times total. This means that if your entire party is alive and you apply a buff to everyone, you can extend the duration of Overdrive by 10 seconds at a count of 50, and 20 seconds if the count is maxed out. This makes party-wide buffs especially useful to have on your character if you're in a class that learns one. Additionally, this can make buff effects that have immediate reuse be pretty effective for extending your Overdrive duration quite a bit. One of the most effective and powerful Overdrive arts is the Knife Art Smooth Recovery, for instance. This is a party-wide buff that has immediate reuse as an effect, so it can be used 3 times in a row at a tertiary cooldown, and it also increases the counter by 4 or 8, since it counts as hitting all party members with the effect, which most buffs do not. This can give you a huge burst of Overdrive duration. Combining this with the fast, quick recast that is a thing in this game, so you can spam this art even more, Smooth Recovery is one of the strongest Overdrive arts in the game, both for getting count and for getting a lot of Overdrive duration to work with. Combining the effect of duration increases with the ability to increase your count makes green arts very important in Overdrive. The hardest part of getting into an infinite Overdrive state is the start of activation, since you need to quickly build your count so you can increase your own duration. With the 25-second timer instead of 15, this is a lot more lenient, and quick recast, the green meter under the art palette, also helps a lot in building count more quickly by allowing you to cycle green arts and your count building arts quicker. These are nice changes that help make Overdrive better and more useful to everyone. Another extremely important factor of Overdrive are purple arts. Purple arts are normally just debuff arts, but they can also be very useful in Overdrive, since using them while Overdrive is active will increase your TP by 10 times whatever the current count is per hit of the purple art. This means that if a purple art hits 3 times and you are at max Overdrive, you will gain 3,000 TP back instantly from using that art. That is an absurdly powerful effect and can allow you to keep your TP while using Overdrive, so you're able to use TP arts during Overdrive, or just activate Overdrive again if you're running low on duration. Some purple arts also have immediate reuse as their effect, which can be particularly powerful for building up TP if needed. Side Slash, for instance, is a 2-hit purple art that has immediate reuse as an effect, making it a fantastic art for regaining TP to reactivate Overdrive or use more TP arts. Keep that in mind when deciding Overdrive builds. It may also be worth looking at arts that can help build TP for easier ways to keep Infinite Overdrive with setups that may not have the best ways to build duration, or strong purple arts to restore TP for TP arts. It may also be very beneficial to run max TP up augments, so you have a much easier time keeping Overdrive just by virtue of having a larger resource gauge to pull from. This can be especially helpful for the classes that have a harder time maintaining Overdrive, especially earlier in the game. All in all, the most fundamentally important things to understand about Overdrive is how to build count, how to increase your duration, and how to restore TP. There are other bonus combo effects that Overdrive allows you to use, and for the sake of completion, I'll discuss those now. If you use a purple art into a yellow or orange art, you will increase appendage damage by 50%. Not overly useful, since Core Crusher is one of the absolute strongest skills in the game, but it is an option to have, especially if you're trying to farm. If you use a blue art into a green art, which is an aura into a buff, you will restore your own health by 10%. This also isn't the most useful, since you should be able to keep your health up with Stole Voices pretty easily during Overdrive, but it is there if you want an additional way to restore your own health. If you use a blue art into a purple art, you'll increase the debuff duration by 25%. Again, not the most useful, since the Overdrive duration cooldown bonuses means you can likely keep debuffs applied easily anyway, but it is an option to have. Continuously using orange arts back-to-back will increase your experience gain from the battle, and continuously using ranged arts back-to-back will increase your class experience gain. This will increase 10% for each back-to-back and stack up to 200%. This can be useful for class rank early on in the game, but regular experience isn't really that helpful in this game outside of meeting gear thresholds. Additionally, you can get bonuses if your party members are also in Overdrive, but this isn't going to be super helpful with AI teammates most of the time, but it can be very nice in the online mode. However, if you have 2 party members in Overdrive, you will get plus 50% of Soul Voice's activation rate. 3 party members in Overdrive will gain 50 TP per hit of an art, gaining you much better TP generation when you are in a group that has all your Overdrive active. And 4 party members in Overdrive, the entire party will get a special buff called Super Armor, which is going to cut all damage in half, grant immunity to mobility debuffs such as Stagger, Topple, Knockback, Launch, and Flinch, and just all around, you should have a really good time when you're in that form and just able to spam everything with absolutely 0 interruptions. There are, of course, some even more advanced things you can do with Overdrive, but we're going to stick to the essentially important knowledge in this video, otherwise we'd be here all day. That should cover all the effects of Overdrive and what to do during it to keep Overdrive up efficiently to take advantage of it, so let's discuss some build options that are very beginner-friendly as well as some things you can craft or do to make your life easier. Let's talk about the Full Metal Jaguar path. So the Full Metal Jaguar is probably going to be the easiest way to really learn how to use Overdrive because it has access to so many things that make Overdrive easier, and also access to Ghostwalker, so you can just kind of practice farming on high-level enemies just to see how to kind of just get the rotations down and kind of understand how to use the ability. I definitely recommend a set that uses Blood Sacrifice because you can get TP back from that. Primer is a really good ability. Side Slash will help restore your own TP. And in general, Executioner is probably going to be your primary damage art, so definitely bring that as well. And obviously, make sure you bring Ghostwalker. And Sliding Slinger is going to be your best count builder early on in the game. You have a lot of really nice abilities. You can even start battles without TP like I'm doing here and use Blood Sacrifice a couple times in a row after activating Ghostwalker, and then activate Overdrive from there. Luciel is a great enemy to practice on, because even though he is really high level, the fact that he doesn't really hit too often, you can keep Ghostwalker active as long as you are paying attention to it, and this is a great way to kind of learn how to use Overdrive and kind of make sure you can learn how to keep everything active. And like I said, Full Metal Jaguar is very, very lenient because it has ways to increase Overdrive duration, ways to increase your TP, and ways to give you extra crown when Overdrive starts. So there's just so many ways to just kind of make your life a little bit easier if you go down this path. As you can see here, I build count with Sliding Slinger. I'm able to build count by activating Overdrive, and I'm able to use Side Slash, which is a really nice ability, to get my TP back when I need to. And I'm able to reactivate it, and it gives a ton of TP back since it hits twice each. Executioner also hits 12 times, so it can build 24 count at a time if you use it after a green art, making it a particularly useful skill to just build count as well, in addition to the damage it can do also. Now, obviously, I don't have a ton of damage here with this setup. I'm barely doing anything to Luciel. Now, you can eventually win, obviously, if you keep going in this fight and make sure you keep Ghostwalker active. I have done videos and shown that in the past, but with the current setup, it would definitely take a really, really long time. For this reason, for a beginner, I would definitely recommend going the Full Metal Jaguar path. Ghostwalker is just a great tool to learn how to use Overdrive with, and you have access to ways to restore your TP with Blood Sacrifice, always allowing you to restore your TP to 3000 with the instant cooldown resource meter that we have now in the game, which is super, super nice. And you have access to one of the best purple arts in the game, and Side Slash, you just get your TP back basically whenever you want. It is a great class to learn how to use Overdrive, and a great class to just kind of practice your Overdrive skills. And like I said, Luciel is probably the best punching bag for learning how to use Overdrive because he's really high level, so you have plenty of time to just kind of get the rotation down and understand how to use it. So, Full Metal Jaguar is one of my most recommended paths for new players. The other recommended path that I really like is going to be Mastermind. Now, outside of Overdrive, Mastermind may be a little bit harder, but it has a lot of really, really solid tools. It has some of the absolute best skills in the game, like Core Crusher, which deals increased ether damage up to 150%. If you target appendages, Secondary Accelerator, which reduces your secondary cooldowns a lot, Inner Search, which boosts your potential, and has a lot of pretty solid arts as well, like Smooth Recovery, one of the best buff arts in the entire game, just because it's an AoE buff, so you can extend your duration for Overdrive a very, very significant amount. Myopic Screen is a 3-hit purple art for 3000 TP when you're at max Overdrive, and essentially you're able to just kind of, if you have more than 3000 TP, it has a skill that gives you more TP. You're able to just kind of use Myopic Screen near the end of fights to make sure that you can always start Overdrive in the next fight. You have Beam Barrage, which is a great way of building count, and then you can just spam Smooth Recovery a lot. And thanks to the Y button, the instant resource meter that allows you to recast arts, you're able to cast Smooth Recovery almost infinitely, and you can just see the count increasing by an absolute massive amount there. I've got some other green arts here as well to just have my any kind of safety that I might need, and usually would be waiting for Smooth Recovery cooldown when I use those, but since, once again, we are in the new era, and we have the quick recast bar, which is actually really useful even for Overdrive, we're able to just kind of use that to build count. I'm already at a count of 70, I haven't even reached max Overdrive yet, And now I'm going to use Myopic Screen, and that's going to give me all of my TP back. I'm at over 6,000 TP now, which is really, really nice. I definitely recommend to make sure that you are running some max TP up augments if you're just learning how to use Overdrive as well, because that'll make your life a lot easier. Just have a higher resource meter to pull from. Appendage Crushers are great to put on your weapon early in the game because it is one of the easiest independent multipliers you can do. If you're targeting an appendage on an enemy, you'll get a massively increased damage against that appendage if you have multiple Appendage Crushers equipped. And all around, Mastermind is another great class to have for Overdrive. Now, you don't have a Ghostwalker for this class, so you're going to have a much harder time with just keeping yourself alive. If you're against really strong enemies, you are in danger of being one-shot, but other than that, it's a great class. So forgive me for once again jump scaring you with old footage, but once you truly master Overdrive and really get your build down, you can make some absolutely crazy sets and just kind of go crazy and do a ton of damage if you really understand how to use the systems of the game very well. Overdrive is absolutely key to enabling this, and as such, it is one of the most important mechanics to understand in the entire game. You can, of course, make Overdrive work with any class if you really want to. There are a lot of options available to you in this game. You can always give yourself more max TP. You can always run Grand Procession if you're going Duelist class or something like that. You can give yourself Overdrive gain TP augments. There are so many options available to you to make Overdrive easier for yourself if you're willing to search for them and seek them out. Maybe I'll cover some more advanced builds in another video. Regardless, I do think that about covers everything for me. I hope this guide was useful in showing how to use Overdrive and showcase some pretty easy to set up builds that you can access very early in the game. There's basically a limitless possibility of builds you can use though, and a lot of skills that can make your life much easier too. I hope you all enjoyed this guide and learned something useful and want to go jump back into Xenoblade X right away. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and look forward to more content on the series. And of course, make sure to share with your friends who are new to this game as well. I appreciate all the support, and thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful and blessed day, and hopefully I will see you back here soon for future guides.